All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to EMPM. That stands for Engineering Major Philosophy Minor. And this is the channel where you can get a working aerospace engineer's opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, philosophy, politics, and various other social and cultural issues. It is a Friday night, and I am just chilling here playing some video games. And we're going to have a topic that we talk about today. I think that is actually going to be, I've got a number of things listed here, but I think I actually want to do why I left the left in this video or potentially series of videos. But before I get into that, of course, I'll be talking about that over playing the game of City Skylines. I am working on the city of Citrus Valley right here, and in the previous couple episodes, I finished building out this Cloverleaf Freeway Exchange right here, which turned out to be incredibly huge. I think it's the biggest exchange on the map. You can see right here how big it is relative to some of these other exchanges. But that's okay. It's a fun build. And what I'm going to be doing in the city is I'm going to actually be doing something that is somewhat tedious and annoying. But you can see right here in these subway stations, you see how there's these blue lines right here? So there is a glitch with the game and the 81 tiles mod. That's the mod that allows me to, purchase basically every single one of these tiles all the way out to just the blue, blank space of the game. And for some reason what happens is when you purchase a new tile, these subway stations, it syncs all the subway tracks by a significant amount. So you can see the actual subway lines are way below where the actual places that people walk. And I really get annoyed with how that looks. And you can see if I go into this, whoops, not that view, but like kind of this underground view, you can see how all the subway tracks are like really low, and see how there's this slope. Hang on, let me get off. Oh, bear with me for a second here. I gotta get to the underground view. Go. See how there's this like slope right here, and it's just like way further underground than it should be. Maybe you can see it on this one too. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of sloping in a weird way. So I'm going to go ahead and just be working on fixing that. Unfortunately, the game is going to be paused for most of that, but we will have the sound of my soothing monotone voice talking about why I left the left. So let's go ahead and get into that now. Okay, guys, and one last thing before I get into what I wrote. I'm sorry, I know I do this all the time. I have one last thing to say, and I ramble, but I am going to split this up into 3 different videos. I started writing, and I just kept writing and writing and writing, and I realized that this is probably going to be a little bit more viewable if it's in 3 different parts and 3 different videos. So with that, there were kind of 3 core experiences that I'll be talking about. And this is part 1 of 3. So let's go ahead and get started for real this time. Why did I leave the left? Why did I #walk away? After all, aren't those who walk away conspiracy theorists? Aren't they science deniers? Isn't the slander of racist, bigot, and homophobe appropriate to describe such people? I am certainly none of those things. Despite being entertained by a good conspiracy theory here and there, having lived in a predominantly gay community for many years, and having 2 degrees plus 10 to 12 years of experience in aerospace engineering, it still perplexed many of my friends why I eventually became conservative and eventually moved to a conservative state. If I had to answer the initial question in 3 sentences or less, I would answer simply, because I never truly thought about my former beliefs. Once I thought them through, I could no longer subscribe to them. But maybe I'm being overly critical of myself. Ever since my first philosophy class as a freshman in college, I've loved spinning ideas around and around in my head, trying to prove something absolute, prove myself right, or reluctantly prove myself wrong. This process certainly involved a lot of thinking, but not nearly enough reading, listening, or formally laying out rationalizations in writing for practical application. The act of rationalizing practical application is typically the most challenging aspect of transforming simple philosophical writing to personal belief and action. If anyone has delved into reading great works of philosophy, they may find a lot of eloquent prose without a real prescription on how to live life. I mention this because one purpose that I see driving political ideologies is to do just that: prescribe how to live, how to treat others, determine what is good, and determine what is evil. When I held center-left or even far-left beliefs, I was dancing back and forth on a plateau of thought without consideration to the summit of practicality and socio-political consideration in the distance shrouded by clouds. There were a few key events in my life that, perhaps inadvertently, sent me to navigate this unknown path. The topic of this discussion is to elaborate on some of those key events. Many people who post their hashtag walkaway stories have a very specific, single defining moment. Several of these moments are incredibly powerful, and I encourage people to watch others' stories, especially if you are searching for a community that echoes conservative beliefs. Also, my journey is long, and other stories may save you a few minutes of listening to my monotonous droning on about random crap. Jokes aside, I liken my story to a journey hiking a mountain because it has been a process of continuous discovery while at the same time encountering many familiar objects along the way. The slope has been steep in some areas. At times I've realized I did not have adequate equipment. At other times, I felt I was not yet psychologically ready to accept challenges I faced, and yet, slowly but surely, I have arrived at my current destination to set down my pack, write about it, and then continue the journey. Along every trail, a hiker will encounter novel things and familiar things. The first part of my journey involved encountering something very familiar. Trees, earth, rocks, sunshine, warmth, cold. Sounds stupid and obvious, right? But in the familiarities of this environment, I noticed something subtle. It was all still here. It still works and still sustains. According to Al Gore, circa 2006, wasn't Earth supposed to be a barren, uninhabitable wasteland by now? And I'm referring to the 2014 to 2015 time frame. The trees would die from lack of water. Without trees, CO2 levels would increase out of control. Entire continents would be too hot for human life. Famine would ensue due to decimated agriculture. Hurricane categories would need to be upgraded to account for gigastorms. And while the winds of tempest blew our buildings over, the sea would engulf entire cities, displacing billions. Oh, woe is humanity. Hard to say that without laughing. I was confused, to say the least. I remembered that long ago, I had a movie day in one of my high school classes where we watched An Inconvenient Truth. After the movie, I told my friends that I simply didn't believe it. I look at pictures of Earth from space very often, as I did back then, and I didn't believe that our relatively small civilization epicenters could have that large of an impact on something so vast. Full stop. EMPM. I thought you said you used to be a lefty. Let me explain. Immediately after recalling my experience in high school, I asked myself another question. Why did my view change? Why did I become so obsessed with reducing emissions, blaming every instance of inclement weather or weather phenomenon on climate change, and replacing all tried and true methods of energy production to solar? When I asked myself this question, to be perfectly candid, I didn't know the answer. By this time, I had been working for a few years in commercial aerospace. I was participating in every engineering project I could get my hands on. I was gulping down information from my mentors like protein shakes, and I was thinking about my next career move. Surely, if I could do all that, I could look at the scientific literature and figure out whether global warming was real, how the conclusions were drawn, and how the models were predicting relative to reality. I faced a couple of challenges in my research that are worth mentioning. These are challenges that one will face with a myriad of politically fraught topics that rely on statistical analysis, models, or discoveries that can't be easily tested. Number one, The first search results page on Google are going to be dominated by news articles or scholarly opinion pieces. If you decide to look at these items first, go straight down to the references section and look for that specific paper being cited. Use that as your starting point. Number 2, the amount of studies is incredibly vast, with the majority being meta-analyses rather than the actual models used to perform climate predictions. In addition, studies that actually perform testing need to be scrutinized from a perspective that warrants a completely other video. I wanted to find the actual studies that run models and compared simulated results to real-world data across long timescales. Eventually, one study I found hit the mark, but it showed something strange. The model predictions were in woeful disagreement with real-world data spanning the last approximately 10 to 20 years. And when I say they were in woeful disagreement, what I mean is that the models significantly overpredicted global average temperature. Now, you don't have to believe me on this study, since I have not dug it up for this video, but go ahead and try to look for these studies yourself. They are indeed all available to the public. That in and of itself is an important point. All these studies are available, and they get debated all the time in the scientific community, but the media never covers that. Go figure. As an aside, I ought to take the time to go find that study and also look at new ones and discuss them on this channel. I might find something that contradicts what I'm saying here, but this is my walkaway story, not a scientific journey of discovery at the moment. Upon seeing the conclusions, I was admittedly annoyed. At this point in my career, I myself was designing experiments, doing pre-experiment predictions, performing the experiment, analyzing the raw data, adjusting my own models to the data, and utilizing the results to explore qualifying hardware, proposing design changes, and/or optimizing working designs. How could the climate model results be so far off from real-world data and still be utilized to project future results? Results which are the foundational justifications for large-scale social engineering programs. My confidence in my own position that global warming was speeding humanity towards an existential catastrophe which would render Earth uninhabitable was undoubtedly shaken. Furthermore, my own career experiences with model verification and validation relative to the data I was seeing could not be ignored. I want to pause my city building for a moment and show you something. What you are watching in front of you is a saved animation of Earth's western hemisphere captured by satellite imagery over the period of the previous several days. This imagery is available 24 hours a day, real time. I'll put a link in the description. I'll let this animation repeat a couple times. Look at how the clouds wisp about, expanding, compressing, manifesting out of nowhere seemingly for no reason, swirling, and only giving us indirect evidence of the wind patterns that drive them. Of course, they also drive the wind patterns. Now that you've seen that, I'll ask you a simple question. Do you think we, humanity, have a model that can predict that? Engineers are often tasked with simulating complicated, nonlinear, unsteady, phase-changing, coupled fluids and heat transfer problems to predict hardware performance, which has principles that are only a small fraction of the complex interactions that contribute to Earth's climate shown in the satellite imagery. How about testing? If an engineer is going to use computational fluid dynamics, CFD, to predict the exhaust gas dynamics, pressures, and temperatures to design a rocket nozzle, you bet your ass a test is going to get set up using hardware that was built to match that CFD simulation geometry one-to-one. The rocket will be fired on the ground, and if the parameters from the test show differing performance from predictions, the model is wrong. Not only does the model need to be adjusted to reflect the data accurately, but a new test with updated hardware must be performed where the predictions match almost exactly. Can we do that with Earth? Can we repeat experiments on a global scale to confirm the allegedly sophisticated climate models? The short answer is no. With this in mind, I was disquieted by the motivation by world governments to institute drastic socioeconomic changes to turn only one of the 500-plus climate model influencing knobs in an attempt to socially engineer away an alleged problem with phenomena we can't predict and can't validate without simply letting the earth keep turning. I was one step closer to hashtag walking away. All right, guys, that is the end of part number 1. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And before I let you go, I want to let you know that if you look a couple videos back, you'll see that I have a video titled "Vaccinated Should Stand Up for Unvaccinated" or something along those lines. One thing that I want to do with this channel is try and give a voice to people who are fellow engineers. Maybe they're in the military, or maybe their company has instituted a vaccine mandate as a result of Joe Biden's recent vaccine mandate. And I want to give them a voice on this channel, but not only give them a voice, I want people to find their own voices and really start speaking out. So if you guys have a story about yourself that has been influenced by these vaccine mandates, then please leave a comment. Please speak out, and let the world know that you're not some evil conspiracy theorist, crazy person who's just trying to cough out a miasmal cloud of COVID onto people and get people sick. What I want to do is show people that it's not evil for other people to simply make their own personal choices on this matter. We have plenty of mitigations for COVID that have been working. The vaccine is only one of those mitigations. But by the way, every individual has the opportunity to protect themselves the best as possible without having to force treatments and invasion of disclosing medical information on other people. With that said, stay tuned for part 2 and 3. Also, feel free to leave comments in the comment section, agreeing with or rebutting anything that I said in this video, and we'll go ahead and hopefully get those addressed. So thanks again for watching, guys. Catch you in the next one.